Remember the time when Justin went fully R&B, like a flip switch? The year was 2013, he was getting into trouble, speeding in Lambos and peeing in buckets. What came out of this time was one of his best works to date. Journals. A great body of work that seemed to fade into the depths of his discography. Perhaps it was because of the trouble he was getting in. From the more than controversial feature to his potential cosplay, Light Skin Bieber, label's non-existent support of this album, and his on and off again relationship woes. What happened to his quote, light skin era? And why are there so many mixed opinions on it?
Long as you keep it on the low like Lindsay.
So where's Heartbreaker?
Awesome.
Thank you for
Heartbreaker, you wanna hear
I
it?
love it.
All That Matters was written when I was in,
Prison.
A great.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and it's your girl Cameron. Thank you guys for watching today. We're going to be talking about what happened to Justin Bieber's quote light skin era or R&B era. Listen, I know record scratch, we are going to break this down, but it was a pop culture moment. If you remember Bizzle, through the guise of his 2013 Journals project. But this was when Justin Bieber went completely R&B for a full album. He departed from what was expected. Some loved it, some hated it, but there has been recent rumors that Justin Bieber is set to release an album this year, as he's been following producers like Darkchild and many others, signaling a potential return back to R&B. So will we finally get Journals Part 2? And not only did Journals recently hit its 11-year anniversary, but on December 20th of 2024, Journals earned its biggest streaming day of all time. I want to go through the era of Journals, right? Keep a focus on the music, but what was Justin doing at this time? And how does this also fit into the history of white pop artists having that R&B era, right? Putting it on like a coat and being able to take it on and off when they feel like it. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. That helps me out a ton. Don't worry, I'm gonna have another What Happened To deep dive coming next week. Hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and let's get right into the commentary. So we have to discuss the elephant that is in the room. What does light skin Bieber mean? In order to frame this whole conversation, we gotta talk about and break down the existence of this term. In simple terms, when people are saying light skin Bieber, they're referring to the era of music that Justin made, i.e. a joke saying that Justin's music, fashion, etc. was that of a light skinned man. It refers to the period of 2012 to 2014 where they referred to him as Bizzle, changing his Instagram name to Bizzle at some point. I've heard some people say Biebervelli. I never ever used that term. And then some people say Jaquavious Bieber. Some people say that this was their favorite version of Justin. It's not a popular opinion. Now, I did find a definition because I was curious to see how people define light-skinned Bieber. And here it says, quote, light-skinned Bieber, or Bizzle, is a term that jokingly refers to a specific period of time when Justin Bieber was transitioning from squeaky clean radio Disney star to slightly edgier pop singer, getting tatted and hanging out with Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy was very much so singled out in this quotation. So Bizzle was the main term that Justin claimed and acknowledged, being a rap name that he used from around 2013 to 2015. His friends, his collaborators at the time, had given him this nickname and it stuck. And there were rumors at this time that were swirling that Justin wanted to kind of transition to R&B or rap. And he even has a logo for Bizzle tatted on his skin. So it's safe to say that Justin has seen these jokes, he's acknowledged it in some way, shape, or form. And this term can definitely warrant some eyebrow raises. But many people on the internet do use it as a running joke, right? It's not supposed to elicit some deep philosophical racial conversation. People generally understand what you're trying to say without having to say a lot of words. But From Justin's attire shift, to using the light-skinned face, to the group of his friends and collaborators at this time, his demeanor, and also the trouble and the problems he was getting into, which we will get more into detail on what those were. But there's something to be said though. His actions weren't his own. His actions were due to the people he surrounded himself with. It was due to adopting characteristics of black folks. Like, it just never felt like people would give him the accountability or put that responsibility on him for the bad decisions he was making. This is not to say that these influences were good, but it did seem like the PR was trying to spin the narrative to them being the main and almost sole reason for him acting the way he was. But as time went on, we found out that he was going through depression, and he was also having a hard time being in the spotlight and having these adults making decisions for him and being overworked. And I think that should also be emphasized as well. And this term was birthed in that moment, right? And although we use it as a joke, I'm not trying to be the fun police, because I've laughed at the jokes. The TikToks, when Jaquavious Bieber comes on in the club, when lights get hilarious. But there's duality, right? We can laugh at things and still acknowledge, like, hey, yeah, this is like not funny, but it's funny. Because let's be clear, acting black does not equal acting out. And this was by far a point in time where Justin was getting into more trouble. He wasn't that same kid from Stratford, Ontario. When he slowly began shifting his image for the worst, it raised eyebrows. And you could argue that it's odd to use this term because it implies that his bad boy era is attached to acting black. Loosely or very, very directly, honestly, placing bad characteristics on a race or implying that being black is merely a phase. Even the R&B singer Maxwell got backlash when referring to JB as light skin. Back in September 2013, he tweeted, "Shout out to Prince, I'll Be Sure, Chris Brown, Jeffrey Wright, Drake, and Justin Bieber. Long live the light skin." We've seen this pipeline that has happened with numerous artists, right? They have their quote black moment, and whether that means they fully dive into it, the R&B and hip-hop sides of their music, but also down to the aesthetic. Their whole aura shifts. But I wanted to preface why this era was so controversial, why this era was somewhat erased from some fans' memories, while other fans hold this, right? It's like a relic. So I'm here to say that I acknowledge both sides of this, right? Because the internet is going to joke. But I also do want to challenge y'all to think yeah, it is a little bit. We are going to talk about what is journals and the lead up to journals. So Journals is the album that's not an album but feels like an album. It's actually a compilation album by Justin Bieber, fully released on December 23rd, 2013. And you may wonder, what is a compilation album and why does it differ from being counted as a studio album? It's usually a collection of songs from multiple recordings which may have previously been released or unreleased. So you often see them in the form of the best of or greatest hit. Journals was made up of songs individually released through a period of time. So the only full bodies of work that Justin had to predate Journals, okay, album-wise, was My World 2.0, that released in 2010, Under the Mistletoe, which released in 2011, and Believe, which released in June 2012. Now keep in mind, Justin Bieber rose to fame in 2008 when his videos were discovered by Scooter Braun on YouTube. And early on, he made connections with Usher, LA Reid of Def Jam, and even Justin Timberlake. And at some point, Usher and Justin Timberlake were in a bit of a bidding war. Who was going to sign Justin and who was going to be his mentor? Usher won the race. And he was the answer to the teen heartthrob solo act that had briefly ceased at this moment in time. So up to this point, Justin's music, or mainstream music, was mainly pop. However, there were always semblances of R&B and hip-hop that existed. And the label wanted to push the pop sound as it was more universal and catered to a teenage audience. However, in 2008, Justin Bieber even said himself,
"What do you see for yourself? What kind of career would you like to have?"
Well, I see myself doing more like R&B,
Yeah.
like sort of like Usher or Justin or like an old Michael Jackson.
So on albums like, let's say, Under the Mistletoe, he collaborated with artists like Boyz II Men, Mariah Carey, and Usher himself, as well as there were other songs with an R&B pop edge, heavier on the R&B. And his 2012 album Believe was, to me, the main album that raised him into another echelon. It's fair to say that at this point he was growing a global following, meaning more people were getting familiar with his sound, which largely lived in pop. But there were songs like Boyfriend, As Long As You Love Me featuring Big Sean, Catching Feelings, and Right Here featuring Drake, which is a classic, where in my opinion were clear peeks behind the curtain into his R&B inspiration. I was not a big Justin Bieber fan when he came out. His music, maybe I was feeding on to like the let's not like Justin train, but when Believe came around and I heard records like Catching Feelings and Right Here, and I said, oh wait a minute, like I'm hearing something. But y'all know I am an R&B girl, so my ear perks up to R&B. So I always did feel like when he leaned into that bag, he had a nice tone, he had a nice voice, nice vocal runs, a smooth shift to falsetto, and an ear for it. At least he had the right people in the room, because the collaborators are important in making that sound. But I don't know if you guys remember some of the songs that he made and featured on, such as Love Me Like You Do, Wait for a Minute in 2015 with Tyga,
Wait for a minute. Wait for a minute.
Lolly by Major Ali, Maria, I'm Drunk by Travis Scott, which he featured on with Young Thug as well, Juke Jam by Chance the Rapper in 2016, and Foreign Remix by Trey Songz featuring Justin Bieber. Now, was that a loopy-loop of a timeline? Absolutely, but many signaling that these songs that I listed were the intro and or the continuation of Bizzle. So when Journals released, okay, it didn't come completely left field. To me, at least. And apparently he did record the songs for Journals while he was on his Believe tour from 2012 to 2013. And he wrote songs every day in multiple cities. And Scooter Braun even said, quote, he was writing 1 to 2 songs a day for the entire tour and labeling them by city that he wrote them in. Hence why on Journals, track number 15 is randomly titled Memphis. Why? Because he wrote this song in Memphis. It's that simple. So back to Journals. Journals was rooted in R&B and had a more mature sound, exploring deeply ideas of heartbreak, forgiveness, frustration, and romantic relationships, and also directly addressing like the bad boy persona that he had taken on at this time. Justin's management said clearly that this body of work was intentionally different than what he'd released prior, saying, quote, it's very R&B driven, personal songs, not necessarily songs that he was thinking of as radio records. That's why he called them journals. They're very, very personal to what he's been feeling over the last 6 months, going through a tough time. And he worked with producers like Jason Boyd, or better known as Pooh Bear, Major Ali, Andre Harris, Rodney Jerkins, The Icon, and to name a few. So that inspiration was directly in that room. But he also was able to snag features by prominent hip-hop artists like Big Sean, Future, Chance the Rapper, and Lil Wayne, as well as a criminal R&B artist whom we will discuss later. But it was clear that the direction of this album was intentionally different. And the rollout of the album, let's talk about it. If you were there, you were there. This is gonna unlock so many memories for some of you guys. I was personally entertained at the time when Justin announced Music Mondays, a part of a 10-week digital download campaign. So a new song was released every Monday night, spanning from October 7th to December 9th, 2013. And let me tell you, it was a time. I would sit in front of my computer waiting for YouTube. Okay, what releases tonight? And after the Music Mondays, he'd package the album off with 5 additional songs in a compilation, also known as Complete My Journals. So this was released as a lead up for the Believe theatrical film that was to be released on Christmas Day in 2013. Now, Journals was only digitally released, but eventually released on vinyl in 2016. So again, very much so kind of a hidden underground project. There was also a clear and clean visual theme. Very simplistic, a white background with a purple sketch. Each song had its own symbol that was related to each song's subject matter. Very simple, but effective and memorable. But the reason why this album is quite controversially debated, right, and its impact, as well as like the quality of music, is because of the noise that it didn't make in the mainstream. Like, I genuinely think that some people do not know that this project exists. It did not chart on the US Billboard 200. Yes, I'm going to say that again. It did not chart on the US Billboard 200 album. And for where Justin was in his career, it charted so underwhelmingly. It went as far only to reach #1 on the Billboard Social 50 popularity chart in the US. And some of y'all have not even heard of that chart. I had never heard of that chart until doing research for this video. And the album only debuted in the top 10 in Norway and Denmark. Don't ask me. And I believe Hold Tight, All That Matters, and Heartbreaker were the only songs to make appearances when they released on the top 40 of the Billboard Hot 100. That's not a shabby figure, right? But for Justin Bieber, who's like at the top of his game musically, like people know who this kid is, for it to just completely tank, you're wondering what is going on. And we'll get into the quality of the music, because that, in my opinion, was there. I don't know what was going on though in Denmark, but all them bitches were hitting #1. The Taste. But it was underpromoted by his label due to it starkly veering from his projected career arc and sound. The label quite literally wanted to protest whatever he was doing. They quite literally didn't support it because it wasn't the direction they wanted him to go. So his label at the time was Island Def Jam, which is an imprint of Universal Music Group, or UMG. The label quite literally refused a physical release. It's as if they treated journals like a dirty little secret. And it was so bad that the label refused to report its sales to the Nielsen SoundScan. So that caused it to not chart on the Billboard 200. They wanted to hide this shit. And I suppose this is also the frustration that R&B fans have. R&B as a genre is not taken as seriously, right? It's not believed to sell records. Even though it is such a delicacy, it is such a gorgeous genre of music, right? It's so rich, but it's just not as palatable or commercial. So when you have this big pop artist at the time basically being like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this real quick, they're like, nope, we're not going to put money into it. And you may also wonder, what was the critical reception? Because we're talking a lot about fans. Many critics gave it a mild review. Some felt that the thematic nature was redundant and maybe that the production was a bit unfinished. One critic said, quote, "Journals is a mournfully desperate, frequently freaky set of songs that finds the 19-year-old Canadian singer begging for a second chance with an ex." While the Washington Post sported the headline, "With complete my journals, Justin Bieber ends a bad year with a bad album." While some even felt that this album was a disingenuous attempt at trying to discard his boy image, right? Like, I'm a man now. Justin was 19 when he put this out. So yeah, like he quite literally is like, I'm not the same 14-year-old kid that you guys were introduced. However, other critics positively noted his vocal maturity, the cohesiveness, and finding Bieber more fully engaged with his music and passionate. So it was absolutely like a visceral mixed bag. However, it slowly became a cult classic amongst a segment of Bieber fans. And he even garnered a new fan base, right? A more mature fan base because of it. But maybe not the fans that his label wanted to cater to. We're going to talk about very directly what went wrong. Let's face it, the next pop prince ditches the pop sound, right? The general public doesn't like it. Neither did his label. At this point, many of his fans, or his core fans, were young girls from 10 to 16. They had grown to love his teen pop sound, aside from his looks. To the label, that kind of music does not sell Barbie dolls and posters. I mean, this was quite literally his most mature body of work at this point, sonically and thematically. I do understand a 12-year-old could not listen to this project and fully engage. This is the first project where Justin was openly exploring sexual themes, very openly. It just wasn't appropriate. Okay, so I do understand from a marketing standpoint, these fans also may have not had a large exposure or appreciation for styles like R&B/soul or hip hop and trap. People are quick to cast things they don't understand as bad or underwhelming. And I believe that this happened here. And his producer, Pooh Bear, who worked very closely with him on Journals and has also penned songs for 112, Usher, and Kelly Rowland, said, quote, "Justin grew up listening to R&B, so Journals was trying because it was going against the grain of what he had been doing sonically, but it served so much of a purpose in him growing up in maturity." So when the project didn't perform well, Pooh Bear, the producer himself, quite literally thought his producing career was over. But Justin never let him go. After Journals, Pooh Bear has been credited as a producer and songwriter on every single album.
After that, another person got cut off, Pooh Bear, a longtime friend and producer of Justin, who he's also blocked. This came after fans speculated if Pooh Bear was next, after claims that Pooh Bear was always taking credit for Justin's songs and boasting that the album he worked on with Justin was more successful than the others.
Like, but why was the only song that went #1 R&B? I was gonna say, Peaches was the only R&B song on Justin.
He claimed that Peaches was the only successful song from Justice because it sounds like something he'd write.
The only #1 on the Hot 100 was Peaches, and it was all Pooh Bear melodies.
When Justin released Changes in 2020, it underperformed and Justin seemed over it, quickly scrapping the album and releasing Justice. So it seems like Pooh Bear is harboring some resentment over that. He had also worked with him on Journals, and he's reportedly spoken to fans conspiring about what the songs were about, since it was from that crazy 2013-2014 era.
And then 2, this might be one of the biggest and most controversial reasons why Journals did not do well. He was the tabloid punchline. The bad boy shtick had taken over, and the general public, as well as some fans, were completely turned off by it. He had more bad press than good. In 2013, Justin was 19. Up to this point, he kind of conquered the world. AMAs on his belt, Billboard Awards, 10 MTV Awards, Grammy nominations, and a swooning fan base that at this point had really justified any and everything. He felt untouchable. But like many child stars do, it shifted into a phase of rebellion for smoking tree, slapping paparazzi, his controversial friendship with Lil Twist. Bieber's camp actually said, "We are deeply concerned that Twist has become a powerful negative influence in his life and feel very strongly that Justin needs a clean break from the rapper or else bad things are going to happen." Keep in mind, Lil Twist was also a Young Money artist, so he was affiliated with Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, Drake, that whole camp.
Scooter doesn't like Twist. Scooter has been telling Justin, stay away from him. He's a bad guy.
Yes, and Wheezy, he not like that. Anything you gotta say, when you see it, say it face. And if you do happen to say it face, I ain't gonna make you eat them words. I'm gonna put them on your tombstone.
Or to pin Justin's bad behavior on the influence, rather than like, yeah, maybe Justin's just making really poor decisions and it's because he is an individual thinker and he has control over his actions. He was also mentally unraveling in front of the public at this point. In 2012, prior to Believe being released, he was pulled over for driving over 100 miles per hour. People were pissed at him for meeting Canada's Prime Minister wearing overalls in 2012. He also had a growing tattoo collection, and we already know that people associate tattoos with criminal activity. Spitting in a neighbor's face allegedly in March 2013. Justin's tour bus was raided for having substances in April 2013. He peed in a restaurant mop bucket and it was caught on camera in July 2013. He was showing up 2+ hours late for shows. His friend Lil Twist crashed his car, Justin's car, into cement poles and fled the scene. In March 2013, it was all over the news that Justin had egged a neighbor's house in Calabasas in January 2014. And not long after the Journal's release, Justin was arrested in Miami on January 23, 2014, due to driving under the influence, driving with an expired license, and resisting arrest without violence. People were done with his shit. He even had fans that were starting to be done with him. And that absolutely negatively impacted people wanting to even tune into his music at this point, because he wasn't like that sweet little innocent child that they had come to know and love. There was a lot of on and off again relationship drama with his ex-girlfriend Selena Gomez, and the public became grossly invested in headlines every other week. And it said that Journals was heavily inspired by their relationship. Remember, Selena and Justin had been publicly dating around 2010-2011. But around this time, 2013 to 2014, guys, we had already known about the tumultuous nature of their relationship, right? It wasn't like the sweet Hollywood couple anymore. They were breaking up, getting back together, dating this person, not dating this person, being caught low-key going to get some substances in a shady area. Like, we already knew. The veil was lifted. Actually, in a deposition video recorded in March 2014, Justin got very upset when questioned about Selena.
Don't ask me about her again.
Ever?
Don't ask me about her again. Don't ask me about her again.
Have you ever?
Don't ask me about her again.
And actually, his track All Bad on Journals was even said to be a diss track to Selena's bestie at the time, Taylor Swift. Taylor was supposedly upset with him for how he was treating her best friend and expressing publicly her dislike for their on and off again situation. Even in the song All Bad, he says, quote, "Oh, you know females, you know they like to run their mouths." So it's safe to say that people were not very fond of him between the period of 2013 to like 2015. And then 3, the worst possible feature plagues this album. R. Kelly was featured on track number 7 of Journals called PYD, a track quite openly about sexual relations. And it's unfortunately the longest song on the album. Bieber had sent the song to R. Kelly after they discovered they were staying at the same hotel in 2012. I quite literally couldn't tell you a lyric in this song. I've never listened to that song in full, ever. Even when it came out, I was like, why does he have a song with R. freaking Kelly? Like, making a song with R. Kelly in 2013 is absolutely a choice. But let's rewind to 2013. R. Kelly, everybody knew of his crimes up until this point. Everybody knew that man was nasty, dirty, disgusting, and a low-down, dirty, crooked criminal. Okay? But the reason why this didn't seem to cause as much controversy is because people generally still kind of accepted R. Kelly. They were still low-key listening to the music. He hadn't been convicted of his crimes yet. So, like, in a way, I kind of see why they got away with this back then. But let's be very clear. People knew what R. Kelly was capable of and what he was doing in 2013. To me, that's absolutely a main stain on this album that would, of course, to me, detract some people from listening, like going back and revisiting the project. Fans and casual listeners alike have debated the legitimacy of this project and where it stands in his discography. So let me know if you've listened to Journals. I want you to stop, pause this video right now. But to me, out of all of his albums, especially up until this point, it told a story. From Heartbreaker, with a heavy hitter like The Dream on the writing credits, to Swap It Out, which I'm going to go in here and stand on my soapbox and say very confidently that Swap It Out is one of his top 5 songs in his discography, hands down. Memphis, Confident, which became a sleeper hit featuring Chance the Rapper, All That Matters, Flatline, One Life, that was allegedly co-written by Drake, to Recovery with the Craig David sample flip the guitar chords from Fill Me In, filthy. And did y'all know that Bad Day contained a sample of the Isley Brothers' Footsteps in the Dark, their 1977 track, which, fun fact, apparently I am related to the Isley Brothers. We like 5th cousins, like 6th cousins, something like that. Let's talk about it. We got to talk about Hold Tight. So Hold Tight was first called Grip Tight. Yes. It was a song that Pooh Bear, his producer, had written for his own album that never released. And Justin liked the track so much that he asked, "Hey Pooh, can I do it?" And Pooh was like, "Sure, but you got to change the song title." He said, quote, "You're 18 and it's a very sexual song. You can't go from singing Beauty and a Beat to Grip Tight." Real. Because Grip Tight is crazy. But it's the way that the song could be interpreted as like a long hug or a long kiss. But then when you go back and listen to the lyrics, nasty. So the way if you go into the comment sections and see discourse about this album, it's genuinely the cult favorite. The cult favorite. So now you see more people being like, oh, like this is mature music. I can get with this. So it seems like it has taken people almost nearly 10 years to give Journals the credit that it somewhat deserves, right? Like some people didn't even really give it the time of day until Hailey Bieber used Flatline in a TikTok. Let's talk about the potential return that people like to say. That is light skinned Bieber. Is he adding to the long line of artists who, quote, co-opted black sounds for a moment in time and never fully lived in that space for too long? I would say yes and maybe no. As you guys know, I listed a lot of the collaborators often through this video because I felt like it was important. I think a lot of the genuineness and the authenticity that you hear with these projects, right? It's so important that you have people who are the source of that material in the rooms helping you create it to honor the material. And I think based off his collaborators that definitely existed with this album, so I do feel like there is a level of appreciation that's happening here than just sheer appropriation. But in his albums, Justin's albums to follow, like Purpose in 2015, Changes in 2020, and Justice in 2021, there had been a sound shift back to pop. Purpose mainly leaned into EDM and dance pop sounds, which was quite popular at this time. Pieces of R&B and hip hop, but let's be real, Purpose, it took a back seat in comparison to where Journals, R&B was driving the car. Then you had Changes in 2020. Many people thought that Changes would be like that Journals Part 2, largely because Justin Bieber teased his own fans with the caption R&Bieber when teasing Changes. But Changes as an album just did not stick with the public. And again, he kind of fucked it up for himself because a lot of people were immediately turned off by his lead single, Yummy. Personally, guys, I'm gonna say this. I kind of like Yummy. Especially the version featuring Summer Walker. We all like songs that are just maybe not that great. And then you had Justice that released in, I believe, 2021 with this synth pop more pop rock leaning for sure, and traces of R&B/soul. But he never, again, fully made the commitment going back to the pure R&B sound, which partially does make sense when his label almost completely ditched his Journals effort. Due to the poor reception of Journals, he never fully toured the album. He started adding it to sets like in the Justice tour that got canceled, and X, Y, and Z, and doing it at little festivals, but his fan base, his core fan base, largely ignored it. But the only Journals acknowledgement that we have gotten in like its entirety was Justin in 2021 did a Journals live TikTok performance. Front to back. He did nearly the album front to back. And some fans have even recalled or asked him to re-record Journals with his fully matured singing voice. And there's also been a slew of reaction channels and newer listeners revisiting the album in 2023, 2024 because they hadn't heard it. And so now, because people are starting to talk about it on social media, people are starting to rediscover the work and give it its just due, its proper credit. So to round this video out, will a Journals Part 2 be on the horizon? In recent years, music hasn't been on the forefront of his brand. As you guys know, he's a new father as of 2024, but diapers are expensive, so I think that's why he's kind of getting back to work. But he was a husband as of 2018. And he's also no longer like at the height of his music career. So like, what does he have to lose? And I hate to say lose. Let's be very clear. I hate to say lose because it makes it seem like R&B is like this throwaway, or where people resort to go and feed their ego / receive talent praise and revive themselves, when R&B is a genre that deserves the utmost respect for the standards that it is set for vocalists. It has inspired and shaped some of the greatest musicians we've ever gotten in shaping popular music. So it should not be treated as merely an option or a second thought. Just be clear. And I'm not saying that the artists I mentioned treat it as such in their heart, okay? I'm not saying that. But the way that society labels it and boxes different artists does treat it as such. Because Justin Bieber recently followed Rodney Jerkins on Instagram and also began following Cash Cobain. Someone said, Haley gonna be wearing shark boots and bodysuits soon, Lord. And she might. He also shared a snippet of music in January, and child, we want R&B. We don't want no damn Playboy Cardi. One of those unreleased tracks, which I can't play it here because I'm sure it'll get copywritten. But I wasn't feeling it. But there was another one snippet that he posted, and I said, oh, this is kind of cool. And some sources even reported that he's taking inspiration from Journals for this new album. So, long story short, what do you guys think is going to happen next? So that helps me out a lot. Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. I try to get back to you all. And hit that subscribe button. We are on the road to 100K. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.